everybody.
Hello.
I'm Tammy.
I'm Tim.
And we are so excited to welcome you to our second episode of the Broward Center Broadway Chat Series. We had a great visit last week with Jay Hendricks from the national tour of Christmas Story and the regional premiere of Because of Winn-Dixie. But we have an amazing guest with us tonight. We are so excited to welcome Andre Cerullo. Andre is currently the music director for the LA production of Hamilton, and we are so excited that he is stopping by to chat with us tonight.
And throughout today's chat, we are going to allow you to ask questions to Andre. So starting now, if you have any questions as we start talking, just post your comment below, and we will select questions from all of you, the viewers, to ask Andre as we chat.
All right, so Tim and I are so excited. We're trying out our new time. We're doing this a little later, a little prime time Broadway chat series. So I hope that you all will tune in every week at this time because we have a great list of folks coming up. But tonight, I would like you to put a big Broadway chat welcome to Andre Cerullo.
Hey. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you're here.
Me too. It's been a long time since I've seen you, Tammy.
I know. Andre and I go way back. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But first of all, so tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now or what you're supposed to be doing right now. So you're in LA. There's this little show called Hamilton. Go.
Right. Well, on March 12th, we were supposed to have our first preview performance of Hamilton here. And the show was initially here in 2017, and it's back now in 2020 for a longer period of time. So it's kind of like a sit-down production, similar to what they have going in San Francisco. So yeah, we were supposed to be here for months as they mapped out, and unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we're putting a pause until it's safe to resume performances again. But I mean, this company we were so ready to perform, and the cast is incredible, the band's incredible. Yeah, I was really looking forward to it. So I'm excited for when we'll reopen and have audiences again.
I love it. Well, tell us a little bit about your history with this show. Have you been with Hamilton for a while?
I have. I've been with the show. I was hired in 2 weeks after Trump got elected in 2016. I do remember that. So it was November 2016, and I auditioned for the creative team, and they were looking for a position on the tour, the associate conductor, music director position. So I met Alex Blackamore, the supervisor, and Julian Reeve, the music director at the time, and I had to play excerpts from the show. I had to rap for them because all the rehearsal pianists in Hamilton have to rap.
All right.
Yeah, a lot of the choreography is timed to the individual like words and syllables, as opposed to, and also beats, but like the words really are such a defining factor of the storytelling. So yeah, and then I started the tour. We opened in March of 2017 in San Francisco, and then I toured with the show for about almost 3 years, a year and a half as associate, and then I got promoted to music director, which was really cool.
That's
and
so
now,
For those people out there who don't know what a music director does, can you kind of sum it up for our audience?
Yeah. Oh my God. So it's a mixed bag of things. So I would say your primary responsibility, to put it under like a broad, just in broad strokes, is to maintain the musical integrity of the show. So that includes like teaching new harmonies or teaching new vocal tracks to incoming cast members, but also like the maintenance of the show is pretty intense too. I mean, Hamilton has a lot of music. So I'm also conducting the show usually 6 out of the 8 shows every week, to allow the other conductors to do their thing, and so I can listen in the house. Rehearsals, basically, I mean, band notes. Basically, after every performance, I have like a Post-it note system where like anything that like kind of catches my ear during the show, I put a Post-it note in the score, and then I either like revisit that, and if it adds up, I'll go around and talk to cast members or band members or basically whatever is needed to kind of make sure that the show stays in true to the way it was, to what was set and opened. So it's a lot. It's a lot of work. Yeah.
That's wow. Now, were you a huge fan of the show before you went after this job, or did you become acquainted with it after you were hired?
So I forget where before the cast album came out, I think NPR or another news organization released a streaming option available. So I did listen to the cast album all in one go when it first came out, and I was completely floored with the show itself and the sound of it and the concept. But then I knew I wanted to see it, so I actually didn't. I've only listened to it 3 times before I auditioned for the show. So when I got those excerpts, some of the songs I had a vague idea of what they sounded like, but I really hadn't listened. I didn't have a lot of exposure to the show because I knew I wanted to see it in person. I played the lottery in New York for a year or well over.
Did you say that you win?
No, I never won.
No.
And the irony is now usually the front row behind me, they're all lottery winners, and I try to talk to them either at intermission or at the end of the show, or just say hi and ask how they're enjoying it or whatever. But I do tell them that I played the lottery probably 200 times in New York, and I never won it. And I do remember the first time I saw the show, and it was right after I got hired for it. I was so excited to see the show at the time, and also terrified that I had to learn this monster of a musical with a pretty big reputation behind it. So it was a pretty surreal experience for sure.
That's amazing. Now you have the best seat in the house.
Yeah, I could see everything.
Now, do you conduct with a stick, or do you play while you are music directing the show?
Yeah, so Hamilton is a show that we call piano conductor, as Tammy, you're well aware. Some of the songs I'm playing and using my head. Other songs I'm able to play with one hand, use one hand, the other hand, and then sometimes I'm just using both of my hands. And it really depends on the moment. A lot of the more lyrical moments of the show where there's strings, where the quartet is really prominent, the string quartet. Luckily, I'm able to use my hands in those moments. And it's very cleverly orchestrated and mapped out. So it never really feels it feels very fluid when you do it. Once you get the choreography of it, but it's pretty tricky because some songs you're kind of just hanging out. Other songs you're jamming on the piano, and then other songs are pretty patch, keyboard patches a specific sound. Some of the songs you change so many sounds throughout the course. So it really depends on the moment of the show and. Yeah, but for sure, Hamilton, there's no baton. It's not a baton conductor show.
So given all that you're doing, what do you think is the most challenging section of the show for you?
Oh, that's a really good question. I will say the second act is harder to conduct than the first act, at least for me. I don't want to speak on behalf of the other conductors, but there is an element to the specificity and the focus, pretty much from Adam's administration to the end of the show. It at least for me, it requires laser focus, and I really can't let anything slip because they're little timing things, and a lot of the songs aren't. It's dramatically driven more, so you get more of the spoken rap kind of feel instead of the true production number or something like that. But yeah, that's pretty tricky. I would say the second half of Act 2 is always a tough spot.
Wow. So what's the part of the show that no matter how many times you hear it, it just fills your heart and gives you goosebumps?
I love Helpless. I think Helpless Satisfied sequence is one of the coolest parts of the show for me. And that's another thing about conducting that I love is that I'm able to also see the show. So telling that story and seeing it happen in real time every night is pretty cool. But yeah, I think that sequence is really really brilliantly constructed. I love the end of My Shot just because I feel we're getting to a point and then finally we just hit it.
Right.
The opening number is pretty cool. I love the opening number. Yeah, I would say those are my good spots that I oh, Room Where It Happens. Love that song.
Oh yeah, that one's
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, it's great.
Love it. Well, so tell us a little bit. What else have you done in your career? Take us back a little bit. Where did you grow up, and then how did you get from growing up to being the music director for Hamilton in LA?
Oh my God. Good question. So I grew up in New Jersey, and after I started taking piano lessons when I was 8, and I'm very like classically trained. I mean, if you see today, I literally played Clair de Lune and Rhapsody in Blue and Schubert. So like I pretty much like have always had classical training, and I guess is this when I talk about my acting phase? So in middle school and early high school, instead of playing for shows, I actually was like, I wanted to like be in the school show.
Yes.
So I've always had an affinity for theater. Even though I got a college degree in classical piano, I kind of always knew I wanted to go into theater conducting. And the first Broadway show I saw, I was in middle school, was 42nd Street, and I didn't know they had live musicians in New York on Broadway. Like I didn't know what Broadway really was. I just knew like musicals were fun and they sounded cool. And then when I saw there was a conductor, I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I do remember going home like, Mom, there's a conductor. They have musicians down there. And one of the trumpet players in that pit was the dad of one of my friends on our soccer team.
Oh,
so
wow.
It was like, yeah. So just knowing you could have a career as like a theater musician was like so mind blowing. So then I guess like middle school, high school, I always like wanted to be involved with the school musicals. And then after my freshman year of high school, I moved down to North Carolina and auditioned for Les Mis, which you were music director. And I have to say, you know, there are certain people who definitely influence my understanding of what theater is and the way shows are constructed. And I will say, Tammy, like you, as a music director, I always admired your positivity, your energy that you give on the podium, the way you instruct the group, the way you talk to people, the way you teach. So I do have to say that was a very, very big influence on my my journey. And I do not believe I would have fully pursued a career in musical theater if our paths hadn't crossed. So I do remember Les Mis was one of the coolest falls of my high school experience. And then when I found out you guys were going to do another show, A Chorus Line, and that's when I started playing for musicals with you. And that was again such an important and influential moment in my high school career for sure. So then I went to college. I went to college for classical piano, but I kind of always knew that I wanted to do theater. So I picked a program that I picked a school that had a pretty strong theater program, just because I knew that I wanted to kind of cross over. So I went to Boston Conservatory and I played for a lot of musicals there. Like, oh my God, like 3 or 4 shows a year. It was crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because in addition to like the main stage productions, they have a lot of like student directed productions and like other theater based activities. So I learned a lot there, and I have to say that pretty much like confirmed everything that I was feeling about career wise. Like I definitely want to do this when I graduate. And then I got a little lucky when I graduated. I was working at a regional theater in Fort Worth, Texas called Casa Mañana. And the music director at the time there, Eddie Robinson, he was someone I met in North Carolina as well. And he's been a really, really big mentor and friend in my life. I was his intern when I was like 8. I was like taking notes for him in the pit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so over the years, he conducts Radio City every year. So when I was in college, I would take the bus down to New York and I would watch him conduct the show. And like, he's just been a really, really valuable friend and person I aspire, I look up to. So he got me the West Side Story tour a few months after I graduated, and I was working with him in Texas. And so then from there, oh my God, what happened? I toured for 9 or 10 months on that show.
So what did you play in West Side Story? Were you key 1 or key 2? What did you play?
Whatever the piano book. So there's some monster moments in that. I actually look back on that
So hard.
and I'm like, how did you play that? I was doing that on so the type of tour that was. It's called a bus and truck, where like sometimes you play a city for a week, sometimes you play a city for a night. It depends on what part of the where you are in the country and the way the schedule's mapped out. So like I genuinely do not know how I did that show 8 times a week in like all these different cities playing that. It was crazy. But I have to say, I learned a lot on that tour. Like touring is kind of like its own thing, as opposed to just staying in one place. But from there, I jumped onto the Pippin tour. I previously worked with the supervisor on the 2013 revival of Pippin. She did a show in North Carolina, which we can also get to. It's called Nerds the Musical, and it did one of its out-of-town tryouts in Raleigh. And so I met her there, and then Pippin tour kind of happened. So I toured with that for a year and a half, and then I left the Pippin tour to do the show Nerds on Broadway, which got canceled after like 3 weeks of rehearsal, which is so unheard of and crazy, and possibly one of the most psychologically scarring moments of my life.
That was sad. Like the marquee was up and everything was ready to go, and that thing.
The set was inside of the theater, and like we were about to start. We were about to have like band rehearsals and a sitz probe, and I mean, we're ironically enough. I know I probably mentioned this before, but the same day that Hamilton LA got suspended, it was the same day 4 years ago that Nerds got suspended. And I'm like, that's a cursed day.
Stay in the house. What was it, March 12th?
March 12th. It's a cursed day.
Well, that actually connects to one of our audience questions that we have.
Oh, yeah.
So Penn Butler is asking, what would you say is your biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge? As like, I'll answer it as like, from a music director perspective, I will say, keeping the show fresh for everyone involved on a show is a huge challenge, because you are doing the same material 8 times a week. And it's very easy for like an entire company, I think, to kind of like feel the ups and downs. So I think the more you can bring, the more you can shed light on different aspects of the music or different songs that you want people to focus on, like here, focus on the rhythm more here, like, or more intention-based musical ideas. I think that is challenging in itself, just so that it doesn't ever feel stale or boring. And I really, really try to keep the vibe up for sure, especially in the pit. But and another challenge is like just knowing that, you know, a career in performing and a career in theater, it's pretty up and down. I would say like after, like there are periods where you freelance, and then there are periods where, you know, you can get on a show and you'll work for like a year, hopefully. But it's that aspect of the industry is pretty volatile, and I think it takes a specific type of personality and willpower to always know that you're doing this because you love it, and that's why you're pursuing it, and it has to be important to you because of that. So it's pretty. I mean, I love it, but I just know like it's definitely like a lifestyle. Like I've been to almost every state in the U.S. and like it's like the 3rd time I'm in LA for a show. So like it's just a very interesting lifestyle, because you kind of where the work takes you, or you set boundaries and you say, I'm not going to do that. I want to go there.
As you were sharing your story, some other questions came through from our audience.
Yeah.
And we have one from Jen. Aside from Hamilton, what's your favorite musical score to hear and to conduct?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh my God. I will say I do think West Side Story is like a perfectly written show. Like I don't think there's a single note in that score that doesn't have significance or intention or meaning behind it. And that was a show that I feel like I could play for like 10 years and never get sick of it. It's really, really well written. Let me think. What are some of my other favorites? I love Sweeney Todd. I think it's such a show, and I think the songs are again like Sondheim. For me, I would love to conduct a Sondheim show. And it's weird because like that taps into more of like my classical education. I really like, if you told me my senior year of college that I would be doing a hip hop rap musical in like 6 years after graduating, I would be like, no way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty trippy. I have to say, like, this whole Hamilton thing has kind of like expanded my just like my understanding of theater and music and the way you can use different genres and of music to tell a story. It's been great. But I would say, yeah, West Side and Sweeney are definitely up there for me.
And now that you are working on Hamilton, inquiring minds want to know, have you met Lin? And if so, is he nice?
I've met him a handful of times, and I will say he is extremely, extremely nice and generous. Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy, for sure.
That's so cool. So what's next? Like, what are you thinking? Like, one day what's on your bucket list?
I have to say, this whole like self-isolating quarantine has given me a lot of time to think. But I feel very content, like I've always wanted to conduct shows, and if I do that for the rest of my life, like I will be so happy. So I think as long as I'm still able to like play piano, conduct, and work on musicals, like that's like all I want to do. Yeah, it's pretty fulfilling, and it's a job that has its ups for sure. Yeah,
definitely.
We have another audience question here. I know that you're classically trained. What are the classical pieces that inform your work with a hip hop score?
Ooh, great question.
That's a great question. That's a great, and actually, I will say that this is something that we encounter when we hire new musicians for the show, or I don't hire them when the higher ups hire people for the show. But basically, like, Hamilton requires a lot of rhythmic playing, and sometimes my observation is that you can find musicians who have incredible technique and incredible musicality, but when it comes to like nailing the center of a beat, like and doing that consistently and understanding the way different rhythmic grooves work, that is like a whole other thing in itself. I will say, playing pieces by composers that are more rhythmically grounded, like I would say like Gershwin for sure has helped me. But even still, I try to build in time where I just work on like grooves or chord progressions on the piano, just to like figure out different ways to comp certain like chords and rhythms. It's tricky because classical music for me is so interpretive sometimes with the way you phrase things and the way you with the use of rubato, and like Hamilton has very specifically designed. I mean, the score is notated, like every single 16th note is notated in the way it should be played. Like there really is no question about whether you get louder somewhere, whether you play something with a tenuto or a staccato or an accent. And so that's something I really respect about Alex Lacamoire, is that he's very specific and very meticulous in the way he transcribes and arranges and orchestrates music, and it makes playing it like so great because you know what they're going for. But I mean, I would just recommend playing everything. I mean, I've been practicing a lot of Bach recently. Like I would say the first day I pulled out some of these the well-tempered clavier, my fingers were like, excuse me, I've not done this in a very long time. So I think as long as you're working on a variety of material, like it will lend itself to you being versatile enough to play a variety of different styles. Truly, in my audition for Hamilton, I was like, I am way too classical for this. There's no way. There's no way. I remember calling my mom after and being like, I don't think I got that.
What did you play? What did you have to play for the audition?
I had to play excerpts from My Shot, Yorktown, Helpless, Farmer Refuted, which is like the trickiest keyboard 2 part in the show. There was another piece. Oh, Where It Happens.
Oh, okay.
So basically, like the audition excerpts that they give for the actors, you just have to put them. And then Yorktown and My Shot, I had to rap as well.
You had to rap.
Yeah, and then at a certain point, they put on the metronome and had me play through them with the metronome because a lot of the show is on a click track, so that the tempos are I mean, especially with a rap show, like the slightest little push in a tempo, you can trip someone here. So I'm actually grateful that there's a click for the majority of the show because it kind of keeps everyone like solidified and together, and we feel it as a unit as well. Yeah.
Very cool.
So you were just giving some advice, and we have a question from the audience kind of along that track. Liz, our friend Liz, what advice do you give young people who might want to enter this field?
Oh my gosh, just go for it. I'm being serious. Like, I truly, wait, Tammy, this was a quote you used on your Facebook, I think.
What?
You said, if you have an intention, oh my God, what is it? It's like when you have intention and you put everything you have into that intention, like you will get there. And I truly, I'm not sure that quote, but do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Okay, but basically, I really believe like I was that college student where like if there was a tour going through Boston, I did everything I could to get a rush ticket to see that show. I then like right when the show ended, I would run up to the pit and go up to the conductor and be like, "Hey, I'm a student. Can I sit in the pit?" And I would say 8 out of 10 times they say no, but there are those people who say yes, and those are the people who end up like pushing you forward in this industry and in this business. So like I would say like don't take no for an answer, and literally like you just have to go. If like when you have a passion for something and when you have a drive for something, like put in the incremental steps every day. Like even if you just practice something for like a half hour every day, it adds up over time, and then eventually you will be able to get to the point that you want to be. And then also I think I will say good behavior goes a long way. I let people sit in the pit in Hamilton. Like if you just randomly, oh my God, I don't know how to say that. And college students ask me to sit in the pit, I usually say yes, because I understand how instrumental that is to someone's education. And that was such a huge part in Boston. I remember the supervisor on Jersey Boys let me sit in the pit in Boston, and he was in town, just like, and he emailed all the Berkeley students and was like, if anybody wants to sit in the pit for Jersey Boys, come sit in the pit. That was really cool. I sat in the Wicked Pit like 2 times. Like it's really informative, and I think just having those experiences without having any expectations. Like one thing I will say is that sometimes we do have a pit guest who then immediately asks me like, can I be a part of the show? And I'm just like, just take this as an educational opportunity. So having the perspective of differentiating when like an interaction is like an educational one, a professional one, a personal one. I think just having that kind of being open to everything and then understanding where you fit into the puzzle is also a big aspect of pursuing a career in the arts. But I would say like literally do everything you can. There is no clear-cut trajectory to becoming a conductor or becoming a music director. So many people have different ways of doing it. But I think the common thread is that there was a lot of hard work and perseverance going into that. It's rare that it just like randomly happens. I've never really been in a situation where my phone has like someone calls me and they're like, hey, we have a job for you. Like I can't ever say that it's really been that. It's like a combination of me being like, hey, and then them being like, hey. So it's like, I don't know, there's like you meet in the middle kind of. Yeah.
That's great advice. That's neat, because you know what? I knew when you were in high school that this was going to happen, because you were amazing and brilliant and fabulous to work with in high school. And I'm so proud of you. I'm just going to get gushy.
So sweet.
So proud of you. And I look forward to the opportunity to get to see you conduct this, and either in LA or a future show. You're amazing, Andre.
Oh, thanks, Tammy. Thank you.
So, all right. Well, that flew by. That was so fast. Our time is up, Andre.
That's so fast. Wow.
So listen, I wish you well, my friend. I hope that you're back in the pit, and you know, I hope we're all back doing our art in real life with real people.
I know, me too.
So, but no, I'm sending you lots of love, and I appreciate you for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. It was so nice to chat, and so good to see you again, Tammy.
Yay. All right, everybody give Andre some love. Bye, Andre. All right, Tim, that was cool.
Yeah. I'm not a musician, so I learned so much just listening to him, like give the behind the scenes details.
Very cool. Well, that's what you get at Broadway Chats, all things Broadway. So I'm so glad that everyone joined us and asked all these good questions. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your question tonight. Come back and check us out next week. Follow the Broward Center Education's Facebook, and we will be announcing who our guest is next week. So until next time, I'm Tammy.
I'm Tim. Well,
we haven't figured out our tagline yet. What was it, Tim? All right. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.